Charlie Croker is the biggest hero of real estate in Atlanta. The problem is he's going bankrupt. Jesus balls almighty.
I gotta say, I'm sure you hear it all the time. I'm a big admirer of your work, so it's great to get to chat with you. And A Man in Full is another wonderful addition to your filmography. Now, I feel like the past few years we've seen you play some morally complex characters, whether it's the Comey Rule or American Rust, but Charlie Croker feels like maybe the most ruthless character I've seen you play since Looper. And I'm curious what it was like trying to get into his headspace for this show.
Frighteningly easy. Tom Wolfe wrote a great book back in the late 90s, and David E. Kelley adapted it. And those two people did a lot of the work for me. It's complex, but it's all there. And I love the fall. I love this kind of Shakespearean fall from, being rich beyond, any imagination, larger than life, the star of his own show, and everyone he meets is his audience. He's just so full of himself, thus the title. And then we cut his knees out. The bank basically says, I know you've been, you owe us a lot of money and you think we're just going to refinance, but you owe us $800 million by Tuesday, basically because you say you're going to build another skyscraper, and then you take some of the loan and buy another private jet and a quail plantation, and he's just corrupt. So it was a lot of fun to kind of pop that balloon, and just for 6 episodes, let it just like, psh, all over the place.
Well, I'm 3 episodes in, so I'm excited to see how the rest of the 3 episodes go, but it's definitely...
It gets worse. It gets worse.
Now, do you find, you mentioned it's fun, but do you find it sometimes almost hard to play someone so detestable as Charlie is, especially for 6 episodes in comparison to like a feature film?
No, I think it's, it's a challenge. It's kind of a basic tenet of acting. If you're playing a villain, you try to find some good in him. If you're playing a hero, you try to find a couple of weaknesses. And it's similar with Charlie. He comes to it. It certainly isn't there in the first episode or 2. That's for sure. He's blind to his own idiocy and obliviousness to, anyone and anything around him other than himself. And he comes to it. He gets to it. I think David kind of helped the book that way. He kind of, steered Charlie to a little bit of humanity by the end, certainly with his son, and even with his young wife. He kind of gets to it, but that's what makes it challenging and fun and complicated, and not just, here are the heroes and here are the villains.
I have enjoyed seeing the relationships develop between his younger wife and his son. So like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of how that goes. I see I'm almost at a time, so before I let you go, some moons ago, you made one of my favorite horror movies, Arachnophobia. And a couple years ago, it was mentioned that James Wan was working on a new iteration of it. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you hope to see from it if that ever does come to fruition?
No one's talked to me, but it certainly was, I enjoyed doing it. I'm glad it was spiders and not snakes. I'd still be in therapy if it was snakes. And all I remember is the last 2 weeks of that shoot where we said goodbye to John Goodman and everybody clapped. And then there were 2 weeks left of shooting with just me and that huge spider in the basement. That was it. It was my co-star was that spider as big as my hand that could rear up and hiss. And they would put a rat in its cage on Friday to feed it. And then they would take out the tail on Monday.
That is horrific. That is, I don't know how you did it, but kudos to you.
I don't either.
Well, in the meantime, I really look forward to spreading the word about this show, Jeff. You've done a fantastic job with it, as David has, and I look forward to this, like I said, getting the word out. So thank you for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Grant.
The tragedy is he refuses to recognize it. Mr. Croker, you ready?